Make the choice to begin anywhere in your life, and the journey has started. And along the way, be inspired. Listen to the stories by joining the president of Howard University, Dr. Wayne A.I. Frederick, on The Journey.
Some of our nation's most renowned and influential physicians have served as the chair of surgery at Howard University's Hospital and College of Medicine. From Charles R. Drew and LaSalle de la Folle to Clive Callender and Edward Cornwall III, the individuals who have held this position have left behind a strong legacy of medical innovation and social impact. Hello, my name is Dr. Wayne Frederick, and my guest today on The Journey is Dr. Andrea Hayes, the new chair of the Department of Surgery at Howard University College of Medicine and Howard University Hospital, the first woman to occupy this position. Her skills and experience as a leading pediatric cancer surgeon are already empowering her to take the Department of Surgery to new levels of excellence. Dr. Hayes, welcome to The Journey.
Thank you very much for having me.
So we're going to go back to where it first began.
Okay.
You're a California young lady. Tell us where you grew up in California and what that was like.
Oh, sure. I grew up in Los Angeles, California, in a neighborhood called Baldwin Hills, View Park area. Both my parents were teachers. My mother was a school principal. My father was a counselor at Los Angeles City College. I'm the oldest of 3 children, and it was a wonderful neighborhood. It was mostly African American and all sons and daughters, children of doctors, lawyers, etc. And me and Los Angeles didn't get along too well, so I ended up leaving Los Angeles after high school and moving to New Hampshire, where I attended Dartmouth College and Medical School for 8 years. And that was a fun environment as well.
But before you got to Dartmouth, what about California and high school?
High school, it was interesting. I started in an elementary school that was the majority African American. I remember there was only one Caucasian in the school, all the teachers, principal, everyone. And then it was the 70s, so we were then bused out to a middle school where it was predominantly Caucasian. And I remember even not understanding the food. I didn't know what a bagel was. I saw something that looked like a donut and said, I don't know what this is. But it was quite a unique environment. And it was harder. It was easier to be in the majority environment where I was supported. I was always at the top of my class, and I had a lot of self-confidence. But then moving to when you're in the minority, it really changes things. And my mother had to fight for me to be in the honors classes. And then when I got to high school, it was the same thing. And why are you applying to schools of this caliber? You're not going to get in. So a lot of discouragement in middle school and high school, I think many of us went through.
Right. So you get to Dartmouth, which is, I would imagine, probably a little bit like high school in terms of your demographic representation, but clearly you blossom there. And Dartmouth has a reputation that's probably a little different. What about Dartmouth interested you?
Dartmouth was a fantastic place to train because it was a small environment. There's only 4,000 students, and we got really a good time and ability to get together with our professors and get to know them better. It was really a free environment where we could go train in different parts of the world. We could go away to any part of the world really that we wanted to study. I chose to study religion at Dartmouth because it was something I was interested in, and I knew I wouldn't study again, knowing I was going into medicine. And there were a lot of subjects like that at Dartmouth, and a true liberal arts education allowed you to do that. Also, it was free of distractions. It wasn't in the city. You the library was there, and you really got to know your classmates well. So that's what I enjoyed about it.
Right. Now, religion and then medicine. What similarities, or for that matter, what contrasts you got from that, and how you think that probably has impacted how you approached your medical education after doing a degree in religion?
Well, I think the degree in religion has really enhanced how I practice as a surgeon, because the degree in religion, what it did was it taught me about every single different kind of religion. I had a class in Muslim, a class in Buddhism, a class in Taoism, a class in Judaism, etc. And so I have an exposure and understanding of the differences of those religions. And so when I have patients that come from different backgrounds, it allows me to have that empathy and understanding about the background they're coming from and how they approach their disease process and illness. So I think it really has helped me a lot understand a vast number of religions and from persons we have in the United States.
And then you obviously decided to do general surgery residency. Why general surgery? What was the draw? Or did you always have in mind to be a pediatric surgeon?
Well, it's interesting. I had in mind that I wanted to be a surgeon, but I didn't know I wanted to be a pediatric surgeon. And I did a sub-internship at Stanford trying to show off, and I wanted to be chosen to be a Stanford resident. But when I got there, they didn't have enough room on the general surgery service for another student. And so I was told I had to be on the pediatric surgery service, which I wasn't happy about because I didn't want to do pediatric surgery. I didn't think I wanted to. But I fell in love with it immediately. And my mentor at the time really was a pediatric surgical oncologist. And so that's how I got into it from that early age as a fourth-year medical student.
Right. And so pediatric surgery fellowships are not easy to come by. And it's one of the more competitive fellowships in the country. As a matter of fact, I often tell people I feel like I know every African-American
Yes.
female pediatric surgeon who
Yes.
ever trained, because I think I could count them on, just by fingers, if that many. So what was the process like, and how did you navigate what seems to be a very, very competitive situation in order to land a fellowship?
Yes, I was doing residency under the tutelage of Dr. Claude Organ, which is another giant in African American surgery. And he really led me through the interview process and how to go through to try to become a pediatric surgeon. What he didn't tell me at the time was that if I got through, I would be the first African American pediatric surgeon to be trained. He just kept telling me, you can do it, you're prepared, you're fine. And it was great to have a mentor and a sponsor in my corner like that. That was really critical. However, I did have to apply 3 years in a row. I did not match in pediatric surgery for a position the first, second, or third year. But the good thing that came out of that was I did a 2-year fellowship at St. Jude's Children's Cancer Hospital and really enormously enjoyed my time there and began my research career there at St. Jude. And so once I finally matched in the third year, I ended up in Toronto at the Hospital for Sick Children, which was a phenomenal experience, an outstanding hospital. And it all worked out. At the time, I really just didn't know that I might be the first. I kept saying, why didn't I match and what happened? And finally, one of the other surgical faculty said, well, there are none. And I said, what do you mean there are none? He said, there are no other Black female pediatric surgeons. That's why you're having such a hard time. And, I have a lot of faith in God, and I knew that was what I was supposed to do, so I just continued to persist to get there.
Excellent. And obviously, our paths intersected at MD Anderson.
Yes.
I remember walking into a room with all the fellows and seeing you there. I think you were doing training there. Why surgical oncology as an aspect of pediatric surgery?
Surgical oncology, surgery in general, if you back up just one step from that, we have the privilege of opening up the human body and healing it. And in surgical oncology, you're removing this evil mass of a tumor and restoring the patient to health. And that's really a privilege, an awesome privilege, and something I really enjoy. The surgical oncology in pediatrics is rare, and so it takes additional training to be able to do it well. And it also takes a perspective on how it fits in with the rest of oncology. So I really appreciated my time at MD Anderson when I was training, because it allowed me to have a context for pediatric surgical patients as far as the oncology is concerned.
Right. And you obviously operate now on a very rare disease. Maybe you can tell the audience a bit about that disease and the incidence, why we say it's rare, and where you think it's heading in terms of treatment.
Yes, there's a disease that has a very long name called Desmoplastic small round cell tumor, but it's extremely rare. We think there's maybe 150 to 200 cases per year in the whole United States. I encountered a patient at St. Jude who had this, who succumbed to the disease, and I became curious at that point. At that time, in 1998, no one knew very much about it. It was only really described in the 1990s, and there wasn't much written about it. So I began to study it and to understand what it was. It's interesting because it doesn't just start with one lump like other cancers do. It starts with dozens to hundreds of tumors in the abdominal cavity. And so previously, before I started working on the disease, most surgeons would look at the imaging, the CAT scan or the MRI, and say, oh, there's no way I can get all this out. There's just too much disease. But what I learned from some of the adult patients that were being treated at MD Anderson was that you actually could remove all these tumors. It takes 12 to 20 hours to do so. And some patients, I remove up to 2,000 tumors. But after all that surgery, you can wash the abdominal cavity with really hot chemotherapy, about 105 degrees, and that heated chemotherapy will kill the microscopic cells and keep the tumor from coming back. So I was the first one to do that procedure in a child and to show that it was safe. And once you show that it's safe, then we're tasked with showing that it's effective. And so I was able to do that over about a 10-year period. And I've perfected the technique now and had some nuances to it, so it's very safe. And in select patients, it does provide long life and relief of their disease.
And what's the age range of the patients that you've operated on?
The youngest one I've done that procedure on has been 22 months old. The median age is around 18 years old. So it goes up into young adulthood, into the 20s and 30s mostly.
Okay. I have to tell you, I fell in love with pediatric surgery when I did my rotation here in DC at Children's National, but I could not take care of sick kids. They have me wrapped around their finger. Yeah. They'd be eating things that they're not supposed to eat, and I'd probably be supportive, so I wouldn't do a good job there. Now, you've held significant positions of responsibility as you've moved through your academic career, which then led you here as not just the first female chair in our department, but also when we look across, I think maybe there's one African-American woman who would have become a chair at an academic department probably within weeks of your appointment. When you think of the role and your journey there, what are some of the things you think were extremely important along your journey?
Yeah, the journey in getting to be a woman chair of a department of surgery is a long one, because when you start off, of course, in medical schools now it's sort of 50-50 women, but certainly African Americans are a much smaller percentage. Mm-hmm. And then when you get to surgery training, it's really dominated by men. The training is long. I did 11 years of training total to be a double board certified in adult and pediatric surgery. And so that training and being in a predominant male environment takes a personality that can morph, that can fit in, and that can lead in that environment. And so there are not very many people that can rise through that. It's a very unique skill, honestly, for a woman to be able to do that. So not only do I have to be outstanding in the operating room, I have to be able to communicate with my colleagues who are mostly male and help them, be in a position where they have some respect for me. So it takes time and patience, but as Dr. Drew said, excellence of performance would outweigh any artificial barriers overcome by men. So I think I've overcome them as a woman, and very few women do. But once you get there, it's very special. I think I'm really honored and excited to be leading the Department of Surgery. There have been some phenomenal people before me, and I hope to live up to that.
Right, and one of those people, obviously, Dr. LaFall, one of my mentors, mm-hmm. and I heard you mention Dr. Organ. Who are some of your mentors, and how do you either pick them, how did you find them, and how do you engage with them today?
Well, I think they sort of find you mm-hmm. and help you along the way. Yeah. I have several mentors. I have mentors who are Christian. I have mentors who are women. I have mentors who are older, some that are even younger. And I think they fit in different places, sort of like a puzzle in your life. Mm-hmm. Dr. LaFall, interestingly, I read his chapter on sarcomas, and that's the one thing that got me interested in sarcomas. And then when I got to meet Dr. LaFall, it was an incredible experience. I think between Dr. Organ and Dr. Shockett, who was my chair when I was doing pediatric surgical oncology, and even into MD Anderson, where I had the chair of surgery that sort of pushed me in the way that I should go. You always need somebody to guide you a little bit. Talented people, as you well know, will succeed, but you have to provide that soil for them to succeed.
Sure. Maybe you could tell our audience a little bit about Dr. Organ, who was the second African-American president of the American College of Surgeons, Dr. LaFall being the first, and I think a giant, black, white, or otherwise, in the field of surgery, period.
Yeah, Dr. Organ was a formidable human being. He was someone we didn't want to really mess with at all. He was quite strong. He came through surgery at a time when it was quite difficult to complete your training in surgery. He started off in what we call a pyramid program, where you start off with 5 interns, and the one person gets fired every year until the 5th year, when you're left with one chief resident. And he did that in Nebraska. So not an environment that was easy to succeed, and stayed there to be a leader before he moved to Oakland to be the chair of surgery at UC Davis East Bay. And he was incredibly supportive, incredibly demanding of really excellence and high standards. He made sure I was always studying. He made sure I was always on top of things. I remember one time I didn't get such a good grade on one of the exams that we take going through surgical residency. And he said, well, did you have some test-taking anxiety? You know, what was the problem? And I said, well, you know, I studied, sir. I'm not sure what happened. And he said, well, I'm not sure what happened either, but I know you can fix it next time if you know all the answers. So make sure you know all the answers, and the test anxiety won't matter. So, you know, he would say things like that to keep you motivated. But he also was very supportive and very connected in surgery to help me he helped me get my laboratory research fellowship, being connected to one of our other giants, Dr. Haile DeBoss at UC San Francisco. He helped me get my fellowship, so he was wonderfully supportive. I really couldn't have done it without him.
Excellent. So you're here now. The College of Medicine is going through a significant transformation, as you just mentioned. The number of women in medicine now is rising. After a significant gap for decades, it has closed so that 50 to 60% of each incoming class now are women. And also, you have a hospital that's building a new, going to build a new facility through the Adventist leadership. What are some of your goals as you see the future of the department in terms of what you'd like to achieve, as well as what you see overall for the College of Medicine?
Yes, I have three main goals, really. One is to make even better the quality and safety in the hospital when it comes to surgical care. The second is being supportive of the faculty and enhancing faculty development. It's important for Howard to continue our tradition of having excellent research be done and have that research get throughout the United States as well as throughout the world. So my second goal is to enhance faculty and bring on more faculty that will enhance it even more. And the third is discovery. We need to be on the forefront of new discoveries. And really, that's a responsibility we have to our community. The community that we serve has a unique genetic profile that we really don't know a lot about. We know it's different. We know it probably in certain diseases doesn't respond the same as a treatment to other persons that are not of color. And so we have a lot to learn about who we are physiologically. And so I plan to really work with the community so that not only we can provide better access to care, but we can provide better treatments that are cutting edge and are tailored to our community.
And when you look at the pipeline, and this is probably an unreasonable question, but when do you see the two of us not knowing every black female pediatric surgeon in the country?
Oh, wow. That's a pie in the sky question. You're right. There's only a handful of them, and I know them by number 4, number 5, number 6. It would be great if in our lifetime, I plan to live on this earth for another 50 years. So hopefully in 50 years we'll be there.
Okay, and that sounds fair enough. When you think of the pipeline as well in terms of the diversity, why is diversity so important in the treatment of disease? Disease has necessarily no ethnicity, etc. So, but why do you think it's so important in terms of getting better outcomes?
I think that there are complex societal things and environmental pressures on different aspects of who we are, not necessarily related to the color of our skin, but the communities that we grow up in and the environment that we just don't know. We don't have a lot of answers to. And if we don't have that diversity of not only patients, but of physicians and surgeons and providers, then we won't ask the right questions. You have to be able to ask the right questions to get the answers that are going to really move things forward. And if you have a homogeneous population, then you really are never going to get there.
Yeah. The number of black males who enrolled in medical school in 1978 was less than the number as recently as I think 2016. This year, we've had an unbelievable 21% increase in the number of black males in our medical schools across the country. While that bodes well, do you think the race is run already? Or what else do you think needs to be done to ensure that we keep that trend?
We really have to reach back pretty early, back to elementary school, in order to expose Black men, Black boys to surgery and surgeons and what it means to be a surgeon. Now we have this wonderful thing called the internet. We can bring images of the operating room and what we do there to the kids. We need to really show them what it looks like to be a surgeon or to be a doctor so that they can be excited about it. If you've never seen it, you're just not going to know. Some people say that it's 5th grade math that really determines whether the individual is going to pursue a STEM type career. And if an individual is failing 5th grade math, then they're not going to not only be able to graduate from high school, but will not pursue a STEM field. So I think you have to go back really about to that point and get them motivated to do what we do, which is so wonderful. But if you've never seen it, you may never pursue it. And especially because many of the families of our African American or brown brothers and sisters don't have parents who were doctors or surgeons. So they have no reference for what life is like in that state. So it's going to take a lot of time and a lot of personal attention on the elementary and middle school level to really move the field forward so that we can get more into medical schools.
So let's actually switch gears a little bit, because you are a very prolific researcher. And one of the things that we recognize is, again, when you look at cultural competency within research, the types of research someone may do, what they may contribute, varies. Why don't you tell the audience a bit about the research that you are presently involved in?
Yes, I do molecular biology research, and back to my mentor, Dr. Organ, he encouraged me to do a molecular biology fellowship, and what that is training and understanding the genes and the proteins within the cell and how they make cells move around the body. And the research I do is I do what we call translational research, so closer to changing patient care. So I take the disease that I described earlier and I recreate it in a mouse. I recreate it in an animal model. That way I can study it in that animal model and see what drugs work, what drugs don't work, and how the tumor grows and spreads. It's important to understand the proteins that help accelerate or slow down tumor growth in order to decide or figure out which targets are necessary and which drug development pathways should be targeted in certain cancers. So it's a lot of detailed microscopic work, but once you can show in an animal model that it alleviates the disease and kills the cancer, then of course we translate that to humans. So I'm in the latter stages of, I've been having a lab now for about 20 years. I'm in the latter stages of getting to a place where I can identify a unique target for this cancer that could potentially provide a cure. But that takes, it's a long journey. First you have to understand how the tumor grows in order to recreate it in a mouse or an animal, and then you have to understand how the tumor spreads in order to prevent it from spreading. But it's exciting and it's fun. It's a lot of work. I enjoy mentoring other students in my laboratory so they can be as excited as I am.
Right, no, absolutely. And that pathway in terms of the physician scientist is one that we also need to be expanding and growing. As we wrap up, for the medical student who's listening in and is thinking, I want to do surgery, I'd love to become a pediatric surgeon. For the middle schooler who's going to hear this and say, Mom, I want to be the next Dr. Hayes, and even for the high school student who is thinking of, where they should be going to college, why Howard?
Oh, Howard's fantastic. That's the first thing that comes to mind. I really jumped on the opportunity to be here. I think it's in anybody's career, certainly in my career, speaking for myself, I'm going to work very, very hard at whatever I do. To work very, very hard for something as meaningful as moving our community forward and making our community healthier, there's nothing like it. I mean, there's no other university like it in the country. To have this access in the nation's capital to the community that we have, it's just an incredible opportunity. It really is.
Well, it's great to have you. Thanks for being here. My guest today was Dr. Andrea Hayes, Professor and Chair of the Department of Surgery at Howard University College of Medicine and Howard University Hospital. I'm Dr. Wayne Frederick. Please join me next time on The Journey.
This program was produced by WHUT and made possible by contributions from viewers like you. For more information on this program or any other program, please visit our website at WHUT.org. Thank you.